Hey guys, how are you all? I hope you all are doing good. So far we have completed two videos on blockchain. That is, the very first video was the issues which are there in the current banking system, and the second video was based on the solutions which is provided by blockchain in order to mitigate these issues. So in today's topic we will be discussing the core concept of blockchain is. So in today's video I'll be discussing regarding the demonstrative way of how it will work, but not I will go into the details or the depth of how you can mine or extract the bitcoins. So let's begin. In order to understand what blockchain is, you need to understand what Bitcoin really is. So I have considered this part here. So it's Bitcoin. So you can see this representation by this $B, and it may be written in this way, that is BTC, that is a Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is nothing but a digital coin, which is a cryptocurrency, and it has some digital value. Like you people will have some kind of certain e-wallets which will be there, which you can transfer to a beneficiary account. So that kind of Bitcoin is there. So that Bitcoin has some higher, larger value with respect to some other countries. So in different countries, its values are varied. And so blockchain is essentially a technology which enables the flow of these Bitcoins over a secure network, and it can be transferred from one individual to the other. And so you have to understand that Bitcoin is not blockchain. So that is the main point here. So you may be thinking that Bitcoin and blockchain is somewhat related. So it's related, but it's not exactly the same. So Bitcoin is not blockchain, but blockchain is a technology, and Bitcoin is just a coin or a physical object. So you may be having this kind of coins which is there. So this is a physical coin, Indian rupee, 1 rupee. So this has some kind of market value which it has got. And so blockchain is digital coin or currency which has some got higher value than the physical coin it has. So let's understand this scenario with the help of a money transfer system. So this is the world somewhere you are sitting. So suppose my friend is sitting at US and I'm at Germany, and I want to do some kind of transaction over the Bitcoin network. So obviously he may be having some US dollars which may be in dollars, and I will be having in euros. So obviously some kind of currency conversion takes place here, so that's essential. And in between this I get some kind of less amount. If he may be sending $5, I may get some $4.48 after the conversion and all. So that takes place here. So let's begin. So we have this kind of system here. So obviously I just can't go via waterways or just airways to give him the money. I will have to be in a secure network, or some trusted third party should be there here. So for that what I will have is, so I'm sitting here, my friend is here. So US dollars, he will be sending $5 to me over this trusted third party. And this third party, what he will do is, after deducting some kind of commission, he will provide some kind of 4.48 euros. So this is just a random figure, you can just consider it as X and this is Y. So just ignore this for demonstrative purpose. And after this, since this third party is involved in this, the effort to send this money over this network can be 3 or more days. Can be 3 or more days here. So it can be like you may not get it immediately after 1 day or 2 days, but it can be 3 or more than that. So that's the effort which is there in this kind of earlier system. So what blockchain does is, blockchain essentially remove this kind of third party in this. It removes this transaction fee or the nominal fee which is cut during the transaction, or the conversion rates. Different countries have different conversion rates, so it will not consider this conversion rate here. And the major thing is this effort, it will just remove it. So in order to understand this, we need to have a concept called as a ledger. So blockchain proposes a kind of ledger called as the open ledger. So that's where the open ledger is. So we shall just demonstrate how the blockchain really works. So we have this 4 different parties. We have A, B, C as well as D. So suppose we want to send some kind of transaction, or we want to do some kind of transaction. So suppose A wants to send some kind of transaction to B. And so for example, A start with $10. So let's represent this with a block, and let's represent in this that is A has $10, and A sends some $10 to B, and after that B wants to send some, or for example say A have $10 and A wants to send $5 to B, and so A will send $5 to B, so that's represented in this way. So A wants to send $5 to B, and B wants to send some, say example, say $3 to D, so that will represent in this way, that is B wants to send some $3 to D, and after that D wants to send $1 to C, that is D to C, you have $1. So and this is like you can just consider over the time they just do certain kind of transactions repetitively. So here you can see one kind of cycle has been formed, and so we have represented this in a block, one after the other, representing in a series. So this essentially gave rise to a chain here, and this block, each of the transactions we just have maintained in a block, and this is called as an open ledger, and so this block give rise to a chain, and so this is called as a blockchain. Now just consider the scenario where you want to just send A wants to send some dollars, and say for example we want to send $15. So obviously the system will identify that A initially started with $10 and how he can send $15 over the network. So this transaction is not a valid transaction and it will be terminated over the network here. So this was the concept of open ledger, and so in this each of the parties will be having some kind of chain transactions over here. So maybe A may be having that kind of chain transactions over in this network, so it may be represented in this way. But then we have seen in the blockchain that it uses the concept of a decentralized system, so there is no central repositories there. So what next we want to do is we just want to eliminate this kind of thing, so that it's possible that everybody will see the network at the same time, but then too everybody need to have that kind of copy with himself. So what next we will do is we go with the concept of distributed ledger. So we have the concept of distributed ledger here. So in this, say for example, we have the same parties involved. So we have say A, we have B, and we have say C here, and we have say D here. And so we have the same scenario. So A starts with $10 and he wants to send some money to B. So say for example $5. Now what's the example if B wants to send some transaction or do some transaction, so that will represent it in this way, that is a dotted line, and say for example he wants to do a transaction of $5, and so now we just have removed this concept of open ledger, and now each of these individual nodes are having an individual copy. We are assuming that. So in order to do that, we need to have a kind of concept called as miners. So that's where the concept of miners comes into picture in this blockchain. So since B and C are the two parties currently involved in the transaction, so this solid line represents a transaction which already have taken place somewhere in the past, and this dotted line represents it's currently going on, or the actively processed transaction. So we need to have some kind of miners here. So let's consider this A as a mining center and D as a mining center. So now we have these two centers. So what it identifies is, so in distributed ledger we have two kind of things. So the very first one is validation you have. So the validation is that each of the node or each of the parties or each of the miners which are involved in the transaction, that is A, D, B and C would obviously doing the transaction, but A and D would need to see is that transaction is really, or it's currently being active, or it's currently being performed. So it's like validation is there, yeah, that's true. And second is that you need to generate a special key. So this special key would be generated by each of these miners, and this is a very complex and complicated activity in the entire blockchain process, where you need to calculate a value called as nonce. So that nonce value, whichever miner just calculates the very first, will get some kind of incentive or kind of reboot. So that incentive, you can say that is some kind of BTC. So if D gets identified that this network will do the transaction and it identifies it's a valid transaction and generates the key very first, than A, so it will be rewarded with some kind of BTC or a reboot. So it's like you have this transaction that is A started with $10, and then after that you have this A to B, you have $5. So this transaction just goes here as well. So these two miners will have this kind of data, but not the parties involved here. So you have A to B, that is $5. And any sequential transaction which is done further will follow this kind of activity. And so in the next chance, if A is managed to solve the key value very first, so A will get rewarded in the next time. So this is how the distributed ledger works in blockchain. So hope you guys got educated by watching this video. If you found you got educated by watching this video, please do like, share, comment, and most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much for watching this video.